So good evening, everyone. My name is Father Brendan. I'm a pilgrim, right? More than anything else. And I think we're all pilgrims, and we're all just passing through. And tonight's about the Camino. And I'd just like especially to welcome Susanne Bradley here, who have asked to join me. And Susanne did the French route less than, how long ago was it?
September and October there, just passed.
So just a number of months ago. So I think she's probably fresh off the trail, fresher than me. So just to say a few things, as we said, we're gonna video this, but it's just ourselves are on the video. Nobody else will be on it, but that's okay. The other thing is that it is just for beginners. So we're gearing this just for people who are doing this for the first time. So I think that's the most helpful thing, So it's just a couple of rules of thumb then. So we need to be respectful of other people, obviously. And there's this thing about the Camino that people have there's these kind of ideologies, or should be done this particular way, And we're saying we're taking a bit of a moderate thing, that you can do it whatever way you want, whatever way you can get yourself on the trail. That's what I often say to people. So we're just trying to gear it in a kind of a general way for everybody. Does that sound okay? The other thing, obviously, as a Jesuit, my thing is the spirituality of the Camino, like the Camino as a kind of a retreat, and that's just my particular angle on it, and that's what I'll be talking about. But you know all that, right? So people go on the Camino for all sorts of different reasons, and I always say just go on it and see what happens is the big thing. The other thing is we're going to have to cover a little bit of Spanish terms, just in terms of explaining the Camino. There's loads of, obviously it's set in Spain, and there's all these Spanish terms, but I will explain them as we go through. Even the word Camino, obviously, is the Spanish word for way, for the way or the trail, or in Irish it would be the slee, So that's what Camino means. The other thing is, I've got loads of websites on here as well, like information you can go to. So if you want to take a picture at any stage, feel free, as a way of recording what's happened. If you want a copy of the slides, I'm most happy to send those on as well. Just make sure that we have your email. And what else? I think that's it. So what I was going to do, I'm just going to do a short presentation, just my own story of the Camino, just a couple of minutes, just to tell you my experience kind of shapes how I see it, A couple of minutes on that. Then I'm going to explain the concepts of the Camino with Susanne's help here, like how the Camino works and how you do it, how you have to divide up your day, the budget for the day, accommodation, gear. We're going to cover everything, and then we're going to take questions at the end, and hopefully that'll cover everything that you're interested in. That sound okay? Okay, so let me get started here. This is a picture that I took a number of years ago it's the Aragonese. The Camino Aragonese comes down from the Pyrenees. It's an alternative start for the French route. Not many people do it, but it avoids the mountain, right? The huge big mountain at the beginning, so that's got to be good. So this is my first Camino, right? I'm from Fermanagh. I know Lucy's from Fermanagh as well. In fact, my neighbour just up the road. But my first experience, my father used to send me out to look for the cows, to count them, to make sure they were all there. I was only like 8 or 9, and I was out in this is a bit of a big bog, a couple of 100 acres, and inevitably they would be off at the opposite end, and sometimes you would find them stuck, and sometimes you'd have to round up a load of guys and drag them out of a hole or whatever. So it was, but that's where my walking started. And then, unfortunately, my brother died of suicide a number of years ago, and that was like a huge shock for me. And I remember, as a Jesuit, training as a Jesuit, you have to do this walk. These shorts were all the rage back in '94, But part of the Jesuit training is you have to go to Spain for a month and walk this. It's called the Ignatian Camino, or the Jesuit Camino, and but you got no money, right? And you got no Spanish, so you have to make your way across this trail. And we had a lot of adventures, And I learned something about humility, you know, and letting go, you know, and you learn your limits. So believe me, the Camino's a piece of cake after this. But I remember doing this. I remember doing this when I was a Jesuit novice back in '94, and I thought that's where I'm going to get the answers about my brother's death, you know. So I had his T-shirt. That is the last thing of his that I brought. So this thing about a symbol, to have a symbol for your journey. Like, why am I doing this? Your reason for doing it. And at this stage, this is 2011, I did the northern route. So there's a whole lot of different routes. And the northern route obviously goes along the northern coast. The advantage is it's pretty remote and it's pretty wild and it's a lot of nature. I just wanted to walk on my own in the mountains. But it is quite difficult. There's a lot of up and down. It's quite challenging, you know. So this is my favorite picture in the Basque Country at the beginning. First thing in the morning, I'm on my own in the mountains walking, you know. Just absolutely beautiful, you know. There's nothing to describe that feeling about being on the road on your own and you're just there and you're just in the moment, you know. You're just present to nature, present to yourself, to everything that's going on, and it's just beautiful, you know. But of course, it doesn't always stay that way, and you have challenges, things happen and all sorts of things. So this is me coming into Santiago about 4 weeks later. I lost a lot of weight. It's a great weight loss program, by the way, if you're into that. But this is after a couple, 4 weeks, so it was 500 miles. I had 5 different injuries. They were relatively minor, but kind of put me off for a while. And then getting into Santiago, this is the cathedral in Santiago, which is the destination, remember? Everybody walks towards the cathedral regardless of what route you're on. All the routes come together. It was really emotional being there, you know, reaching the end. And I remember being in the cathedral. You see the bandages on the knees? And I was absolutely done in. I just about crawled in there on my hands and knees. But really emotional to be in the cathedral. And there's a pilgrim mass that you go to. And all the pilgrims are there from all over the world. And it's a very, very emotional, powerful moment getting to the end. I thought it was all over at that stage. And without the Finisterre, which is this little village on the sea, some people walk on from Santiago to the ocean where the Camino actually finishes. And a lot of people do that particular route. It's an extra 4 or 5 days, you know. But I got the bus out there. I was fed up walking, you know. And but to my amazement, people used to burn their stuff. You don't do it now. Used to burn all their gear at the end of the Camino, you know, like a cathartic sort of release. I remember thinking there's something I have to burn, right, that I have carried with me all the way. Getting a bit emotional now because it reminds me of this experience. But that particular morning, you know, burning that T-shirt, I had a huge meltdown, a huge release, an extraordinary moment. And then this is me afterwards. You see the sense of relief. I was released from this burden that I'd been carrying, you know, because of what had happened, and because of being the older brother, and because of just the emotional load of that. So for me, it was an extraordinary experience, and I came back transformed, you know. And I think that is what the Camino was about. The Camino was about helping people to heal, you know, significant moments in your life, transitions, letting go of things. And obviously this is a spiritual experience at its depth, you know. Finding out what is it that I need to do, what is my deepest desire, what does God want for me is the religious way of saying it, you know. So then this book was what I wrote about that particular story. Here's the thing though, it took me a full year to process what had happened on the Camino. Can you believe that? It took a full year to understand what had happened. So I always say to people, you're going to need to do some processing on this afterwards. It's not just the walk. Say the walk is halfway, then you have to figure out what happened, what was significant on that. This is just my own experience, but this book changed my life. You know, suddenly put me on the road. I'd never written anything before. And this is like a synthesis I did of that book to help people to do the walk based on my own experience, what would be helpful, especially spiritual preparation. Physical preparation is easy, you know, and getting the gear is easy, but to get your head right and to understand why you're doing it, you know. So then I was going around the country talking about suicide bereavement based on the book that I did. And then I was getting a bit burnt out, right? All these invitations, all these things happening. So I went back on the Camino again. This is 2015. I was back on this is the Ignatian Camino again. And I thought this would be a great thing, you know. And my expectations were way up here, right? After the previous one, I'd had such a brilliant experience. I'm thinking this is going to be amazing, you know. On the first day, I fell in the morning. I was taking a shortcut, right? Don't do this, you know. And I got blinded with the headlights, stepped off the road and went down on my knee with the backpack, you know. So I'm in this is the medical center. I have a loyalty card for all the medical centers in Spain. But I was all cut up, you know, and scratches and bruises and everything. But I didn't realize I'd actually fractured the kneecap underneath the bandages. But they told me I was okay to walk on, you know. So I'm walking on in the mountains here in the Basque Country, and I'm in a bit of pain, you know. And I kept going back to 3 doctors in a row misdiagnosed it, right, and said, "You're out, just take a few aspirin," you know. I should have got a medal for this one, if anything. But eventually I had to abandon it and then come home. I eventually got an x-rayed in the Mater just up the road. I had to go into a cast and everything. And the funny thing is, it was actually a brilliant Camino. It was a brilliant experience. I got the insight. You're going to have to stop doing the suicide work, you know. That was the big learning from it. And this is one of the catchphrases. The Camino teaches you what you need to know. It teaches you, you know. And obviously the religious language is God is teaching you through this, the experience of being on the road. And you need a lot of humility, and you need the capacity to learn what is happening for you, you know. To be able to reflect and say, what does this mean for my life? Especially when I go back home, you know. So then I wrote this book, The Way to Manresa, which is about that journey that I had, limping across Spain, you know, and being in the cast and the aftermath of all that. And again, it's fascinating, you know, what happens, regardless of how you are. Something important always happens. So then this is just a map of the Ignatian Camino. So it actually goes the opposite way. So this is France up here, obviously, the coast of Spain. Santiago's over here. So it actually goes the opposite way to the main Camino. And again, there's a lot of different routes and different options. This is just 2 years ago. This taxi driver from Dublin asked me to accompany him on the Camino. He's a real character, you know. And he talked non-stop, right? I nearly killed him the first day. I nearly killed him. He was talking all the time. And I said, look, we're gonna walk separately and we'll meet up later on. And that worked perfect, you know. Sometimes it's easier to walk on your own for a number of reasons, you know, your own pace and getting your own peace of mind, etc. But he was a recovering alcoholic and he was getting his life together. Amazing guy, an amazing story. You know, we had a lovely walk together. And then we wrote this book together, Brothers in Arms, which is a story of us walking that Camino. I have all these books outside, of course. If anybody wants to get them, they're just here.
It's in Clonard. I was looking at it last night.
Which one?
Brothers in Arms.
That's right. Yeah. It's named after Dire Straits. Right? We were both Dire Straits fans. This is just another walk back at home in Donegal, the Slí Columkill's Camino or way. This is 2 years ago. I was leading a group. And again, we're trying to live the same Camino experience in Ireland, you know, and you can do it. All you got to do is put in the same elements. The walking, the destination, the pilgrimage destination, the silence, right? We walk in silence during the day, a couple of periods. Then we reflect at the end of the day. Then this is just another clip this is from Glendalough. I used to lead groups, so I've done about 50 different pilgrimages. Glendalough, Croagh Patrick, about 25 times, different things, you know. You can do this same experience in different places. So, Anyway, that's just my story, right? Gives you an idea about, how it worked for me, what I think about the Camino, and how I see it, how I see the way that it works. But now we're going to move into just a general introduction to the Camino, how it works, the practicalities of it, how you get yourself on the road, So, right, Santiago de Compostela is the name of the city in the northwest of Spain where all the Caminos come into. Santiago means St. James, remember? Saint Tiago, St. James. De Compostela is the field of stars. Goes back to there's this myth about how they discovered the tomb of St. James, that those stars in the sky were indicating where the tomb was. That's where the name comes from. But it's a beautiful city, and the cathedral is the centerpiece, right in the middle of town. Everything happens in the cathedral. All the pilgrims go there to finish. Then the tomb of St. James is in the crypt in the cathedral, underneath the cathedral, obviously, and a lot of pilgrims go down here to have a look at this. You could actually see the remains. So then the routes, remember I was saying there's a whole lot of different routes, and this is just a very simplified map of the main routes. It's about 10 on this, but in fact there's probably 20, 30 different routes, especially up into Europe, across to Italy and everything. But the main route is this one here, obviously the red one. The French route is what most people do. It's the big route, like the motorway, where most people are on that. That's the one you did,
Yeah.
Susanne, right?
Yeah. Loads of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
And a lot of people do this last section on the French route, the last 100 kilometers from Sarria, that is the name of the town. So a lot of people do that to get the certificate in order to prove you've walked it. But that's a really easy bit to do. It's relatively flat, it's safe, there's loads of people, and there's lots of services, lots of hostels, accommodation. You get your bag carried if you want, transport, all those things. And it's relatively easy. And I would recommend that for your first time. It's a really good start because it's so well set up. And it's so easy to do, it's safe, etc.
I would say if you've done the full thing, to be prepared for that being a really hard part for them that have done it all, because all of a sudden there's an amount of people that, there's people always when you're walking, but for that last part, the noise and the queues when you're standing waiting for your coffee, your breakfast, there's big queues, the toilet, big queues. And that was I found a lot of people that had been doing it all along had found that hard. I'd found it hard as well, all of a sudden, the noise. So it was hard.
That's right. There's a lot of people that have been doing the whole thing, have been on their own or with a small group, and all of a sudden you hit these huge numbers of people on the Camino. So it's the way it goes. Let's keep going here. So just the signs and the symbols. You've probably seen some of these already. So the scallop shell is one of the key symbols, but the yellow arrow is the real beauty of it, and this is what it looks like. They're on trees and on pavements and on walls and on the road, and the yellow arrows are everywhere, and you can do the Camino just by following the yellow arrows, I remember that first Camino, the northern route, my first hostel, the first night I was a bit nervous, and the Camino owner took me aside, real confidentially, and he brought me into a room and he said, "Sit down, I'm going to tell you something now, something important, I thought, oh my God, what is this, And he said, always follow the yellow arrows, I'm like, that was the big secret. But he was dead right. He was exactly right. The yellow arrows always point the way, and you can pick them up every couple of 100 meters. Basically, there's an arrow, and you can do the whole Camino just by following the yellow arrows. But it's a real symbol. It lifts your heart, when you see the arrow, it means you're on track and you're going the right way. Getting lost is part of this, by the way, as you go along. And the way, you get lost and then you get found again, and it's part of the experience. So just a scallop shell. This is the cross of St. James, obviously. And these are what the signs look like, on the road, etc., to keep you on track. So then, Camino Concepts, the guidebook, one of the key things. Like, having a physical guidebook. This is what it looks like. It's a little small book, but it has everything packed into it. The maps, the elevation, the accommodation, the food, everything. So generally the first thing you would do is get a guidebook for the route you're going to do, to be able to tell you what's happening. And there's something about having a physical guidebook that's important. Obviously you don't want to carry too much weight, but that's some of the real important things. So having the guidebook for it. And this thing about stages, in Spanish it's called etapas, but basically every route is divided up into stages, and each stage goes from one town accommodation to another town or accommodation. And in some ways it's arbitrary, somebody decides this is what it's going to be, but it's crucial in order that you plan your route, in order that you end up in an accommodation every night. So you have to kind of stick to it. The other thing is that almost everybody else is doing the same thing, isn't that right? Everybody else is pretty much on the same routine. So in terms of meeting people and seeing your friends that you made along the way, it's an important thing. But each one of them is about 20 kilometers. You see that? It's about 14 miles or so. And so that's about as much as you can do in one day, maybe 24 sometimes. 30 kilometers. Doesn't sound like much extra, but it is a huge walk, when you're walking with your pack especially. The heat in Spain is something else in the summer, So think about what time you're going to go is one of the big things. So that's the stages. And here's a map which shows the elevation, obviously, for the route. So in the guidebook, it gives you the maps, plus it gives you this. Is really helpful. You need to know what the elevation is going to be that day. Believe me, every single meter you're gonna feel it,
I would say if you want to avoid people as well, if it does get noisy, stop before or stop after, walk extra or walk less, and you can get, if accommodation, if people are talking to, about a lot of people going to the one place and then there's this, and that's one of the things, maybe detaching yourself from that panic of there's no accommodation, loads of people, but stopping before it or stopping after it can separate you from that crowd and get you still walking with another type of crowd as well. But
Can I ask you a question about that? Like the route you just did,
yeah.
which is where I'm starting. Because the guidebook recommends it's nearly 27 kilometres per day. There's a lot of places in between though.
Is that one there? It's a great guide, absolutely. Listen to the body. And not even the people beside you, listen to yourself. And for me, 20 kilometres was enough in any given day, plus or minus 1 or 2. That's what I found out was my walk. So, and that also separated me from people, but in the midst of other people, and it was great. So,
but there was the choice
there is
accommodation to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what Brendan's saying there. You would find out before you head off in the morning. There's accommodation here at 15 kilometres, 18, and.
But I would always say to people, take it easy. The first day, take it easy. So that thing about doing 27 or 30 the first day is not a good idea. There is a hostel at 10 kilometres on the French route. I would say do 10 and then see how you are. The problem is the first day you feel great, right? You don't feel anything. I must be a super person, Everything's going so well. But stop yourself overdoing it. The first day is where people get injured, do too much, and then they're sore and tired, and then they can't get up the next morning. Take it real easy. First couple of days, work your way into it. Especially if you're not that fit, take it easy. But use that flexibility. The guidebook will tell you what your options are. Divide the stage in 2, for example, and do it over 2 days. Takes all the pressure off. This is not about testing yourself to the limit. There's enough testing on this without overdoing it or pushing yourself too hard. I'm the expert, right, in injuries, believe me. So just on the stages, normally it'll give you a map as well of the stage. This is the one I did at the beginning of the northern route. So you can tell it goes along the coast, which is beautiful scenery-wise. But here's the key thing here, the elevation is the key thing. I mean, this is only a couple of 100 meters, but that's significant when you're walking, So that up and down thing is a key thing. Pacing yourself. This here was actually like a inlet. You know, you had to get a boat across that particular thing, then climb up this huge hill here. You know, it was quite testing. So just preparing yourself, getting ready, knowing what your options are. You know. And I already mentioned the thing about the shells. The fletches is the arrows, or the shells, the conchas. So keeping your eye out for the signposts. Like I said, the yellow arrows are everywhere, but then there's also these other signposts, which are the shell ones, or the signposts, the actual posts, which are up everywhere, you know, so you have to watch out for those as well. But the yellow arrows are the big indicator. They're all hand painted by volunteers, you know. Then the hostels, or the albergues, which is obviously the cheapest accommodation. There's a whole lot of different types, so going into those, but generally that's where most of the pilgrims stay, and they can come in any shape or size. We were in this little hut, just like two of us in a little garden hut, you know, and just depends on what people have got and what they've put up, you know, and there's all sorts of huge dormitories, isn't that right, of 100 people in the dormitory type of thing, you know.
Do you know what amazed me actually? For 100 people in a dormitory and a male and female toilets, and like what, Brendan, about 4 or 5 showers sometimes, and you never had to wait. That really amazed me because we're all coming in at different times and washing at different times, so there was never that. I always find that amazing. Yeah. When you arrived and you were ready to shower, you were able to shower. That was just, well, there was no bother. No, I didn't experience it. Well, I went up to the toilet at 5 o'clock in the morning and then I brushed my teeth. So I went back to my bed and then I didn't have to queue, so I missed. So that was my trip. But you find out what works, and that worked for me. But generally everybody's up in the morning and everybody's getting out. So, and we're all on the one journey, and very, hospitable, so.
Sure.
And Susanne, did you do it alone?
Pardon?
Did you do it alone?
Yeah.
This is what the hostel looks like on the inside, you know. It's lovely. Imagine the smells and the sights here. And but there's something lovely about it. You know, meeting people is the key thing in the hostels. There's loads of people and you're all in together and you meet people, and it's very, and people are brilliant. It's part of the Camino experience, meeting other pilgrims, and people are so open and people tell you why they're doing it and tell you their life story. It's an extraordinary experience, really extraordinary. Everybody's doing it for some significant reason normally, and people are trying to be genuine and be real. It's like it restores your faith in humanity. It's an extraordinary thing. I recommend that.
Yeah, it's very intimate, so it is. You know, there's a real intimacy in it, and there's a real, you know, respect as well. I mean, I maybe wouldn't have been in a company where people would have been talking about this one and that one, snoring and all that there. There's a respect for people. We all wanted a good night's sleep. We all wanted to be respected. So there was just a beautiful, I loved the experience of the albergues. I loved the experience of the, you know, just the intimacy and the shared, it was beautiful. Most of the time. So
then just another key Camino thing is this thing about the passport, the Camino passport. And obviously, this is what it looks like here, you know, it's a little book. And then you see the stamps in it. So this is the way the system works. In order to get the certificate at the end, you have to have the passport, and you have to have a stamp for every day to prove that you've walked it. And at the end, they check your passport, you know. The last 100 kilometers, they recommend you get 2 stamps per day. Normally you get a stamp in where you've stayed, in the hostel where you've stayed, or the hotel, or whatever it is. And then almost every cafe and restaurant and shop along the way has a stamp, you know. And you just kind of get into the way of it. You go in to get your lunch, and you get a stamp, you know. And some of the hostels would have the stamp on the counter. You help yourself, you know. Stamp away. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
You get them everywhere. But this is a key thing you need. You need this. I have the web address for, you can get these. These are the Irish ones in Dublin, you know. I have the web address later, the Irish Camino Society.
Yeah, look for that a good wee bit in advance, because I sent away for mine and mine didn't come till I was away. But the lovely thing is you arrive and you go to the passport. Is it the passport office or where do you go at the start whenever you're starting your Camino? The passport office. The pilgrim office. The pilgrim office. And so that first day I went to the pilgrim office, and I was given my passport, I was given a map as well, and also they told me, because of the number of people, to book my accommodation at Roncesvalles. So, so they give you a bit of today guidance, and so I found going to that office very, very useful, and then as well the passport. So I must have looked for that about a good few weeks in advance, but it came afterwards. So, but
yeah, you can get it. You can get it when you get to Spain. You can buy it in most of the major places, especially in Santiago, in Jean Pied de Port. Most of the major towns will have it. The best thing is order it by post in advance.
My friend showed up at the office in Dublin, and she's all chuffed. I can't go to work with Camino, and she asked the woman, she said the woman never even looked up. Just handed it. So she said, get it in Spain because it's prettier.
That's right. That's right. Nicer one. So, this thing about the pilgrim menu, have you heard of this? That most towns and restaurants have a special menu for pilgrims, and it's really cheap. It's about €10 normally, and there's like 3 courses, and a glass of wine at the end there. You see that? Sometimes they give you a bottle of wine, amazingly. And I wouldn't drink too much wine though. Well, obviously, you're so dehydrated. One of the things is keeping hydrated, But this is the dessert, and often it's just steak and chips or whatever, and then a bit of a salad to start with. But there's loads of calories in it, and it's really cheap, and it keeps you going, and it's really, really good thing to do, and it's just part of the deal. Everything is set up for the pilgrims basically, and people are trying to help you, and people go out of their way, to help you and show you where the road is, and if you made a wrong turn. It's amazing. It shouldn't work. The whole Camino thing, but it does because people are so good, at heart. It's amazing.
Yeah, one of my earlier first experience of this was I went in on my own, and then they put me to a table with other pilgrims, and it was great meeting other people. And thereafter, that was a huge part of the Camino for me, was the shared meals afterwards. You maybe are going on to say, but there's different options. People go out to the supermarket and prepare a meal together, and all the rest. For me, I cook at home, and so I was out every night at the pilgrim meal, and very, very nutritious, tasty, reasonable, and the company, great way just to share a meal at the end of the day. It was beautiful. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, just a typical day, just a timetable, Again, this is just my own style, but I like to start really early, at 6 o'clock. Most of the hostels don't do breakfast, right? So you might have an apple on top of your pack, in the morning, and you just get out, and then you get a restaurant open at 8 o'clock, so you have a coffee and a croissant or whatever. It tastes amazing, because you're hungry. But that thing, starting early to avoid the heat is one of the main reasons. To do most of the walking when it's still pretty cool. And it's about 6 hours walking, right, for 20 kilometers, about 6 hours walking. So you want to start early, and then you're finishing around 2 before the heat gets up. One of the key things. The hostel's open normally about 4. You get into the hostel, you get a shower, sit around, write your journal, chat to other people. There's often mass in the local village. They do a pilgrim blessing for pilgrims at the mass. Really lovely thing. The dinner, sometimes the dinner's a bit later in Spain, right? This is a killer for pilgrims because you're starving and they're eating at 8 o'clock or whatever, So finding a restaurant that has food early can be really important. And then normally everybody's in bed by 10 o'clock. You're so tired, and they try to keep the hostels quiet so people can get to sleep, obviously. So there's this kind of etiquette for hostels, You don't make a lot of noise, especially in the morning, right? When you're getting up. If you start rustling bags and stuff, it really annoys people. They're still trying to get some sleep, So here's my tip: you pack the bag the night before. Yeah, because first thing in the morning, brain fog. It takes you forever, 40 minutes to do something simple. So have it all packed, and literally you get up out of bed, you brush your teeth, and you go out the door. And that's the way to do it, you know. And when you're out there, it's amazing stepping into the sun's just coming up, and you're on the road on your own. It's just an extraordinary experience, like, you know, big stuff. That's a rough time.
It's lights out at 10 o'clock, actually. You know, isn't that right, Brendan? The lights are out.
That's right.
And some of the albergues, the doors are locked, closed. So if you're out, you're out. You're not in. So that's lights out at 10. And you wouldn't, if you have your phone on and the light of your phone, but if the light of your phone is, you don't have your light of your phone on either, because it's lights out.
If you're out at the local nightclub, they'll come in,
You needn't find other accommodation. But yeah.
Let's just keep going here then. So types of accommodation, right? Normally there's a whole range of accommodation options in the one town. And this is, normally you're not going to be stuck, right? This is the other thing. And normally you don't have to book ahead. And normally we try not to book ahead, but you know, whatever you're comfortable with. Some people feel like they need something, but here's the thing, it changes the whole focus for your day. If you've got something booked, it means you have to be somewhere. If you have nothing booked, it means you've got this flexibility and freedom. And it's a different walk, you know. It's a different focus in your day. Anyway, but there's albergues municipal, which is a council one, which is the cheapest one. They're really basic, like really basic. And it could be anything, you know. And it could be any condition and not clean or whatever. And you just got to take whatever you get. But it's the cheapest one. There's private albergues, which are actually better. You pay a bit more for them. There's pensiones, which means it's a simple room in a family home, and it's just a room, no breakfast or anything. You just simply get a room. It's about 28, 30 euro a night, you know, for a room. Again, it's not unreasonable, you know. There's hostales, which is a family-run hostel or a hotel, and you get a room in a hotel, and they have a bar and a restaurant, and they do breakfast and all that for you, you know. So it's slightly more expensive, but still not too bad. There's casas rurales, which is like a B&B type thing. It literally means a rural house. And you can get these in the country. It can be really beautiful houses. You pay a bit more. Really lovely facilities, you know. Hotels, obviously, loads of hotels normally in most towns. Anything from 2-star to 5-star, etc. Normally most pilgrims treat themselves in this, right? After you've done a week or two, you give yourself a night in a hotel just to live it up a bit.
Oh, I don't know, Brendan, I landed in a hotel and it was soaking wet, and I got to the front door and then I was like going, oh, I didn't fit the bill. Do you know, I felt no, I couldn't. Do you know, it was all marble floors. So I didn't. The most I did was a single room in a cheap albergue that had one. Yeah, it is nice to get a wee room in your own, and some, you know, you can get that in the albergues as well as a private room.
If you do that, it'd be nice.
You probably want to book it or check ahead, yeah. But you could if you wanted, and yeah, if it was available, yeah.
Yeah,
You
can do it any way you want.
Oh my God, you can do it any way you
I
want.
think you could have your own space at night after doing that walk.
Exactly, and sometimes the hostel can be quite noisy. Sometimes you need a night off. There's disadvantages and advantages. Obviously, the disadvantage is the lack of people. Sometimes you're on your own and you're a bit isolated.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit lonely. The hostels are full of people. It can be a bit noisy, etc. So, just a quick look at the guidebook just for a second. The guidebook will tell you everything. Remember about the maps, the elevation, the distances. And believe me, every single kilometre is crucial, you know. You get really pissed off if you've done your 20 kilometres and you still haven't seen the town. You get really annoyed, you know. I've done my walk. Why is this not here? There's some mistake in the guidebook, or you've overestimated, whatever. But the lodging, right? It will give you a whole. See the breakdown there? It gives you the prices. Donativo means you can offer whatever money you want to them. You just give them whatever money you have in your pocket, type of thing. And it's just free, you know, open-ended. You can give whatever you want. It tends to be one of the cheaper ones. And then these ones here, the private ones. So it's 11 euros for a night. Menu means there's a meal as well for 8 euros. So it's really cheap, you know. And then it goes up. You know, the hotels are listed, and you can see the prices start to go up as you get better quality hotels, you know. And it gives the other side of the town, it gives you restaurants as well, that you can go. So the guidebook is crucial to figure out what you're going to do, where you're going to stay, where you're going to eat, you know. And then maybe a supermarket, remember, to get your next day, the lunch for the next day. You want to buy that in advance so you can head off early in the morning. And your water is a key thing. Reasons to walk. Depends what you buy, but the trick is to buy stuff that's going to keep, you know. So you buy cheese and salami and nuts, you know, trail mix and everything. So but you have to carry it with you, obviously, and it has to last for the day. So, and a bit of bread and stuff. But it's so cheap, you know. And you can buy a whole load of groceries for €5 or €6. It's going to keep you going the next day, you know. You just get into the rhythm of it, then all right, you get used to it.
Yeah.
Would there be lunch places often?
Oh, listen, I was never in a supermarket to near the end. No. So no bother, absolutely no bother getting something to eat all along the way. I did carry, what Brenton said, I did carry with me nuts and raisins. And if I'd been out, if I thought even the night before and I was in somewhere and I seen a lovely, what you call it, a bap with ham and cheese in it, and I thought I'd take that with me just in case I need it tomorrow, you know. So occasionally I did that, but no.
Would there be water stations along the way? Get a water bottle?
Yeah, isn't there, Brendan? There's.
Yeah, normally you could fill up your bottle during the day, you know.
Yeah.
And you go through a lot of water. Normally you'd need 2 litres a day minimum. Often you'd have to fill it up. But people will give you water, and there's fountains in the villages, and you can buy extra water on the road and stuff. The water is the key thing, obviously, because you need to keep hydrated. And your water, we're getting into this in a bit, your water system, how you're going to drink your water is one of the key things. Like bottles or the tube, you have your tube there.
I did the getting a bottle. I wasn't for getting a water camel or a bladder because there's so much reviews about them leaking and all the rest of it. And then I realised when I had a bottle of water and I had it stored at the side, I was going to have to ask somebody to get me my water, or I was going to have to take off my rucksack. And
show people just.
And I'm a sipper. I sip all the time. I'm not just I ended out with the water bladder.
Yeah, see this here with the tube and the hose? There's a bladder inside the rucksack, literally just a plastic bladder. I reckon these are the best because you don't have to stop to drink. You can drink out of the tube.
Yeah.
You don't have to turn around or get anything out of your pack, and it's the best. I think it's the best solution.
Absolutely.
It doesn't weigh anything at all, just a plastic thing, and it's really convenient.
If there was water regularly, you wouldn't have to fill it up.
That's you're so. Listen, that was the other. I carried an empty bottle. I carried an empty bottle at the side, so that and then halfway I filled it with water because I had already drank it, so it was carrying no more weight. And then if I needed and I ran out, then I had and reserve a bit of water. So you need to keep hydrated. So you do.
The other thing is that water weighs quite a bit. 1 litre weighs a kilogram, so 2 litres is 2 kilograms. It's a really sizable weight, you know. So you try to pace yourself.
I think about a litre. Oh, I'm mils. Well, I don't know that conversion. About a litre. Mine goes about 2 litres, but I probably put in about 1.5 litres. So it did. So it's not. And then when I got it down, then I had to substitute it then for that.
In John's book, also, he will tell you if there's water stations where there's water.
Yeah. A couple of times I just went up to a house and people fill it up for you, you know, if you're stuck. But normally it's okay. Normally you don't have to carry any more than 2 litres.
No.
And normally 2 litres will just about last you for the day. You just need a wee bit of topping up. But if it's hot, you're going to need a bit more, you know, just to watch it.
And Diorite as well, to replace the salts in that, definitely the first couple of days. You know, somebody had advised me and I put in, well, my first experience was on my first day I didn't drink enough water and there was no painkillers sorted that headache until the next day. So so that was me for sure, getting well hydrated every day. And the Diorite for the first couple of days until I got used to, what is the name of there's a drink you can get that has got the salt in it. What is that, Brendan? Do you remember the name?
ISO something.
Yeah, there's a nice drink. It comes in lemon and orange. So if you get one of them twice a day or once a day, that's substitute. You don't need to be on Diorite. So a couple of wee sachets just to back up with you.
Emergencies?
Just emergencies. Otherwise, you're getting it in Aquarius. That's it. You're right, John.
Aquarium. But what happens is, as you sweat, you lose salt, obviously, in your body.
Yeah.
You need to replace the salt. So the Diorite, I always bring a packet of Diorite with me.
Yeah.
And every couple of days, you need to take one of them, especially when you start to get dehydrated, you know. And reading your body is the key thing, you know. The colour of your urine becomes important.
Maybe salt and water. You can get Celtic salt. That's into water.
Yeah. Some way of doing it, you know. Just want to show you this. This is like from the Pilgrim Office. The reasons people do the Camino. So exercise, adventure, peace, solitude, spiritual, cultural, lifetime experience, pilgrimage, religious, meet people, special gift, personal challenge. Huge amount of reasons. And again, you meet everybody walking for these different reasons, you know. The beauty is there's room for everybody and everybody can do it. But one of the things I always say, you need to know why you're doing it. You need to know what your reason is, you know. Because it will become evident. The Camino will test you, and the Camino will ask you those questions. Why are you doing this, you know? So to have some really clear reason, motivation, how it all worked out in advance is normally helpful. Although the Camino will sort it out for you as you go along. Typical budget for one day. This is staying in the hostels, obviously. £5 to £10. Pilgrim menu, about 10. Lunch, about 5. Coffee, snacks along the way. One of the nicest things is just having coffee. It's called Spanish called café con leche. You know, coffee with milk, milky coffee. And it's just beautiful, even though it's not actually good for you.
Oh, but it is. It's full of calcium, and it gives you the energy to keep going.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing. Everybody has coffee along the way, and you know, you're burning off so many calories. It doesn't matter what you eat. Snacks and all that, so it's a lovely thing. And so then remember I said at the end you get a certificate. It's called the Compostela in Spanish, and this is what it looks like. And you have to produce your passport. So there's the passport office in Santiago, and again, as everybody knows where this is, but you have to go there at the end. You know, you finish the walk, you have your passport is all filled in with the stamps. And there's a new system outside where you have to register online. They have like a little barcode thing, and you put your phone up to it, and you have to fill in the form. You fill in the form, it sends you a notification. You come to the office, you queue up, and you get your certificate, your official certificate of having completed it. It has your name on it, you see that? And it's in Latin, it's kind of the tradition. There is also another certificate for distance, which some people get as well. You know, if you've done a big walk, you can get, I've done this distance as well, you know.
Oh, I'm laughing because I was standing thinking, do you see there when you've done all these kilometres and you're standing there and you're handing this over, all of a sudden you think, oh Jesus, they're not going to give it to me because there's something I've done wrong. And that's it. And then they hand it back to you and your name's in Latin and you go, shit, they've spelled my name wrong. I put it down wrong. So, but it's the most, it's like really, that's very powerful now whenever you get that's powerful stuff when you get that.
It's a powerful thing.
It's amazing.
The end of the Camino is so emotional, you know, finishing up and doing all these little rituals at the end.
And then John had the luxury then of being one of the first 10 people in.
Yeah.
And
I got there the night before, so it was the next morning. You get a free meal, which is one of the first 10 in the Parador, the hospital beside the cathedral.
there you are.
It's brilliant.
So there you know.
That's a big fancy hotel in Santiago at the end.
First 10 in the next.
Went in that morning.
That morning, get a free, get a free.
It opens at 10, and there's mass and English at 10:30.
Oh, lovely. That's
Yeah.
right.
Exactly. I'll talk about that in a second. But just coming towards the end here now, the gear, this is one of the important things. The list of gear. The key thing is to keep the weight down, right? Everybody knows this, but everybody brings too much stuff, right? I guarantee you, everybody brings too much stuff. And the weight is what is going to crucify you. It's going to bust your feet. It's going to bust your legs, you know. Talking from experience here, you know, having learned it the hard way. So stripping it right down to the basic, the minimum, you know. There's a kind of a rule of thumb, which is 10% of your body weight, if you've heard of that. But the other way to do it is you just simply got to get it under 7 kilograms is what we recommend. And this is the gear list for a Camino that I'm leading in June. And that's, it's got everything. If you want to take a picture of that, feel free, you know. But
how long is that one? Is that one that you're leading?
well, that's the Ignatian Camino, so it's about 300 miles total. So, but the advantage here, we actually have a minibus to do backup, you know. So it's a luxury one at that. But we're asking people to carry their own bags, you know. The other key thing is that all you need is 2 sets of gear, right? And nothing else, right? Not right? You just need 1 set to wear and 1 set to wash, you know? So every night you get into the hostel, you know, you're all sweaty, you take off here's another little tip from me, you know? When you're in the shower, you're having your shower, and you wash your gear in the shower, you tramp it in and you put the soap into it, and you rinse it out in the shower, right? So super ecological and super efficient, you know. And then you've got your gear washed and your body washed at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's but 1 set's been washed, then you have to leave it out to dry overnight, and then another set that you put on again. So you get into the hostel, you put on the next day's gear, which is, you know, clean and all that. Then you walk the next day, you do the same, repeat the same thing, but nothing else, right? No evening wear, no spare set of shoes, you know, no, just in case, you know, and one set of everything. So you have 1 set of boots, for example, you know, and then a set of sandals or what do you call them? You know, the Crocs, they're really light, which are ideal, you know, for walking around in the evening. 2 sets of socks, you know, walking socks. 2 sets of shorts. 2 T-shirts. Normally synthetic T-shirts, which wash easily and dry really quick, you know.
I went with 4 socks. So somebody had said about changing your socks halfway and doing the Vaseline on the feet, and I picked up on that. So pair of socks in the morning, and off I went, and then in the middle of the day changed them into another pair of socks, and so I had 4 and washed them, and well, I didn't, I had 6. Well, I had 5 because I had a thicker pair that I wasn't too sure about, and I could have got rid of them, but they were very handy at night time because I can't sleep even if it was well warm. I can't sleep with cold feet, so I used them at night time if it was cold. So there's something I wasn't prepared to get rid of, but that was.
How did you find the Vaseline? Because a few people have said that. If you put too much Vaseline on your feet, a woman said to me, put more on.
No, you don't notice it. It's not as how you would imagine it. It's lovely. Actually, I'll tell you what, it's a beautiful thing to do in the morning, is to greet the feet and sitting down. So I would have been one of the earlier ones up and one of the last ones to leave because it took me time and getting myself prepared, and part of that preparation was putting on my spray for the mosquitoes, putting on the sun cream, putting on the spray for the mosquitoes, leaving the time difference, and massaging my feet, putting the Vaseline onto my feet. And it's not as thick and as glary as you think it is. Actually, it's actually lovely. It's you know,
Did you get blisters?
no blisters for the 2 months. So it worked for me, but that might have been it, it might not have been it. So.
Okay, we keep going here.
Sorry.
This is just my own little thing, right, about the Camino. I call it the U-shaped curve, and it's just my own experience. And it's this thing about expectations. Remember, there's this kind of ideal notion of the Camino that it's this amazing experience, which it is. And then there's these people in Santiago at the end with their hands up, like in joy, you know. But it's because they've been through this U-shaped curve. Believe me, the Camino is a really testing experience. Like it tests your limits, you know, your patience, you know, sharing with people in the dormitories, your physical limits, you know, hunger, thirst, you know, emotionally, spiritually. It is a testing experience, you know. And it's so, but that's the brilliant thing about it. It's like this purification, you know, which is the first stage. It's the kind of classic stages of spiritual mysticism, you know. But the Camino does this big time, you know. And often it touches a lot of your buttons, you know. Like, you know, for example, you know, I don't like being up late at night, or don't like people snoring or whatever this is. That's what's going to happen, you know. And tolerating these things and learning to swing with these things, you know. So just this is my own experience. What happens, but to see if you're prepared for it and if you understand how it works, because a lot of people bail out here at the bottom of the U, and quite a few people actually give up the Camino. You know, they get injured early on, or they become so tough, or it becomes difficult, you know, and they don't have a way of processing it and getting through to the real. And the real goal in the Camino is what happens at the end once you get into this place, you know. Often the first couple of days are really difficult. Everything is wrong. Everything feels wrong. It's uncomfortable. I'm sharing, you know, I feel sweaty, I feel hot, I feel dirty, thirsty, and it's not what I'm used to, you know. Help bring me back home to my comforts, you know, the sofa and the TV, right? It's an illusion, obviously, you know, but letting go of stuff, the purification, the illumination, some of the insights you get, and then that sense of union or transformation at the end is extraordinary. That amazing feeling you get, you know, at the end. But it's hard won. This is not a holiday, or this is not like a, you know, a cheap kind of spiritual experience. This is the real thing, you know. It's in my own language, it's like a retreat, you know. You face yourself and all your weaknesses and difficulties, and then you work through them, you walk through them literally, and then you come home with this kind of new life, new transformation, new vision, and simplicity of life, you know, letting go of stuff. You don't need all that stuff, you know. I came home and I threw out half the stuff and shredded all the documents and stripped everything down. I don't need all this stuff, you know. It's not going to make you happy. And the paradox of the Camino is that even though you have very little and you're living really simply, but the joy you experience is indescribable. It's the opposite of what you expect, you know. But isn't that right? It's an amazing thing.
Okay, it is, you know, and I read Brendan's book before going, and should have took it with me. So I found the first part, because it was all, I was doing mine. Brendan says about know why you're going. I had no idea why I was going. In some ways I knew I was going. It was amazing gratitude. I talked about it for 20 years, but thought I would never do it. And then I'm doing it, and I'm doing it for longer, and I'm doing it, you know, just all things worked out as it did. So I was doing mine in gratitude, found the first part physically, you know, hard, but you're right. But as well, Brendan, you're saying that the people around you all seem to have it sorted. They seem to be all okay. Nobody's actually saying how they're feeling underneath. Do you know, so when I arrived on my first day, everybody seemed to arrive, and they knew where they were going. And I landed, and I did not know what way I was going to pack my bag or brush my teeth or get up in the morning. I had no clue. But nobody was saying it. You could compare yourself to others and think, oh my gosh, I did. And you know, but I stayed a second night. So I made a decision. I'm not ready to go. And so I settled a wee bit. So I stayed 2 nights in St. Sean, so I did. But to know that other people were experiencing that, but you wouldn't know by looking at them or listening to them, because they think, you know. And then the second part, that should be mentally, people talked about how it was mentally hard and people didn't do the Masera. I sailed through it. It was the greatest part for me. I sailed through it. But I, at the other end, had an expectation that I was going to walk in water for the last part, because that's easy. I didn't know there was more to come. And the truth is, the last part was hard for me. I have to say the last part was extremely hard for me. And probably even I'm still on the end of it, you know. So that's the truth. So it's your own journey and your own experience, and you know. But when I'm just thinking, when you're saying there that everybody has this sort of, you know, when they arrive, by God, that if you're looking at them, they seem to be sorted. Everybody seems to be sorted when deep down they're you know, having the same experience maybe that I was having, and that's all right too. Like, but
Yeah.
not to compare yourself to others. Listen to what's going on within yourself.
It's a good rule of thumb, you know. You got to walk your own journey. It's one of the big Camino things. And whatever happens, you know, whatever happens on it is part of the journey. So getting injured or meeting people or something happens at home or something throws you off, you know, that's the real Camino. It's not going to be bliss all the way, obviously, you know. You're going to have testing moments, and getting through those moments that's what it's all about, you know. learning how to keep on the road, how to keep walking, you know. Living in the present moment is the other thing, you know. You only have to walk one step at a time, just to be in the. You don't think about the whole thing. You just got to walk one day at a time, one step at a time.
One step at a time.
Be in the moment. You don't have to bring 4 weeks of food. You just got to bring enough for one day. You just got to get to the hostel for that day. You don't have to do everything, you know. That's what it teaches as well. Just live in the moment. You know, that's where the peace of mind is. We're so used to planning and being ahead and bringing loads of stuff, you know, bringing too much stuff. Just let go, you know. Letting go control is the other big Camino theme. You don't have to, you can't control things anyway. And the Camino teaches this big time, you know. You think you're in control. I remember, especially young guys, you know, saying, oh, I'm going to walk the Camino in half the time, you know. I'm going to do twice the distance and all. Like, bust themselves in a couple of days, you know. It's all ego stuff, you know. And we all have this, you know. It took me a long time to learn that lesson. You got to let go, just do whatever you can. Accept the humility of realizing I am human, you know, I have limits. I need help, you know. All these good things.
You know the other one as well, when we're coming from a very fast pace. We're coming from work and we're doing. You land and you're still in that do. And it takes a wee while to slow down actually, you know, and that was some of the people I'd walked along with as well, because they'd landed fast, walked fast, injured very quickly, you know, and it was more just about, you know, it takes a wee while to slow down into a slower pace, you know. And that happens as you go along. You slow down just a bit.
Yeah, that's very true. Often we live too fast. The Camino teaches this thing about get back in touch with your humanity, deepest part of yourself, you know, and just live in that moment. And it is a beautiful experience, but it's hard to get there. It's a process, you know, of letting go, of adjustment, learning things, you know.
And one line we're going to interrupt. One step at a time, actually, can I just say, was somebody said to me, just one step at a time. So you're right, Brendan, walk around a corner and that town isn't where you see it. Or that town's like Bethlehem, it's over there and you're going to be there in 10 minutes. And you're still walking, it's got no closer. And it's one step at a time, but it's really one step at a time when you're going up a hill. When you're going up, and I'm not joking, and if it wasn't for one step at a time, I don't think I would have made as much of it, you know. So it really is. And how many times you land in a town or a city, and Jesus sits at the bottom, you're at the bottom of the hill, you have to go, and the accommodation's up a hill again, or up steps, and the chapel's up the steps, and you walk up the steps, and the doors are closed, and you're back down them steps, and you're saying lovely words. But, do you know, one step at a time, honest to God, that really got me through so many times where I was fit for nothing, but one step at a time, that's the true. So.
Yeah. Just want to keep going here.
Yeah.
Just want to show you this. I think this is the most important slide, just how to do this, you know, how to get started in terms of a route. So I put the websites in here. It's a little bit small, but if you want to take a picture of that. First thing is to work out how many days you have for which route, you know. So if you only have a week, for example, then you do that last part from Sarria, the 6 days, or you do the last part of the Portuguese route, you know, or you do the English route, it's called, which I did last summer, which is only 6 days. Means you get the certificate and you start off and you can finish in Santiago, obviously, it's the big finish, you know. Work out your budget, or how you're going to do it, the style of the Camino. Going to do hostels, or you're going to mix it up, or do hotels, have your bag carried, etc., you know, whatever. Work out where you need to start or finish in terms of flights or ferry or bus or whatever. That's the key thing, obviously. You got to fly in to one place normally. You know, to start the French route, you fly into Biarritz, for example, and then you fly out of Santiago at the end, you know. So obviously just to work out the logistics of it. Order your routes guidebook. You know, Camino Guides is the website for that. Each route has a specific guidebook, you know. You need the up-to-date version of it with all the accommodation and the routes maps and everything on it. Have you heard of this? There's a European health card. Most people have heard of this, but even with Brexit and everything, remember you can still get this card, which is like a kind of a British health system card, you know. But this allows you to go into the hostels or the health centres and to get free treatment, basically. So it's really important. It's going to save you a fortune, you know. believe me, I've been there, and I've had to spend the money because I didn't have the card, you know. Whereas if you have this card, it's all free, which is amazing. Order your pilgrim passport, and that's the Camino Society down in Dublin. That's the website with the link for the order. You can just order it online. Like Susanne was saying, you probably need to order it in advance, well in advance to get it. You can still get it in Spain when you get there, you know.
Yeah.
Start training. Remember, I'm saying about 5 weeks minimum. Here's the thing, right? A lot of people don't train. You didn't hear me say this, right? A lot of people don't do anything, just show up and do it, and you can get away with it, but it is painful, you know, especially the first couple of days. So some training in advance takes a lot of the pain out of it, which is obviously to be recommended. You get a more enjoyable experience, but you don't have to train for months and months, you know. I have this kind of 5-week crash course, you know. I go up and down Cave Hill with a bag full of bricks, you know. You have to train with the weight, right? This is the other thing. There's no point in training on flat ground with no weight. That's not going to replicate the conditions. So you need hills, and you need some weight in the backpack, you know.
Brendan didn't tell me about the 5 weeks. He told me about 20 odd weeks beforehand. For I'm not really a walker, I'm a dander, and I still am a dander. And so get the rucksack was the first purchase, and wean it up in the weight. Carrying, not going with the 8 kg, but going with, was it 2? You sent me a great wee link just of, X amount of kilometres in the first week, and the second week, and the third. And like I didn't make the 20 at any given stage, but it was a nice guide.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you didn't show me 5 weeks, because then I would have done nothing. But do you know? And I carried 2 litres of water. I carried litres of water in my backpack, so I did. And then you know, so I carried it in my walks. So.
Yeah. Here's the other thing: you got to test your gear before you go. You got to walk in the actual gear you're going to use. You know, you know this thing about unbroken in shoes. They're going to kill your feet, obviously, you know. And check your backpack that it works and it fits and everything. There's you know there's a way to put on a backpack. You know this. There's like a method, or there's a recommended thing you do. You know, and most backpacks have a adjustable thing for the size of your back inside, so you can make sure it fits. You know. And I have a video somewhere else. I'll send you a link to it. But there's a way of putting on your backpack, you know, which I'll show you. But you always put on the. This is my actual pack. But you put on the waistband first, right? Not the shoulder. I've put on weight. You put on the waist thing, so it sits above your hips, you know. The idea is to carry the weight on your hips, and then you adjust this, but this is really loose, right? You're not carrying a lot of weight because it's going to kill your shoulders. Yeah. All the weight is here, and then there's these little adjustment things here, the tags on the back where you adjust it so it sits right, you know, and it has to be comfortable. And you have to be able to carry it for the whole day, you know. So it's really important to get a good fit and it works and all that. This is about 5 kilograms in that.
That's all right. It's about, the shops are great that you go to for. I must have went to a few and tried on a few to find out what was most comfortable for me and my size, you know, because obviously I might have a long back, you know. But so, and the other thing was I didn't get my bags. Maybe was it 45 kg or something? It holds, and I could have went for the 50 or the bigger, but I know what I'm like. I'd have filled it. So I thought it's best I stuck to a smaller one, for there's no way that there's anything more going into it, because there would have been. So that was, yeah. I see, Brenton, have you the card, the money card on that?
What's it say about that?
The Revolut card is, it's great just for when you put your money in. What is it? No interest. You're able to use it interest-free and lifting money abroad in Spain.
Yeah.
Isn't that right? Is there anything more about that wee card?
No, normally you need some
your own
cash.
Card is, yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
go ahead.
but a credit card or a Revolut card will work really well for accommodation normally, but you need cash as well.
And that's the one to use the hole in the wall as well. There's no charge apparently for most of them anyway.
Is there cash machines pretty regularly?
Yeah.
Would you carry a lot of cash?
Okay, well I lifted about 300, and then when I got down to about 70, then I maybe lifted another 300, just, 300 euro. You just don't know. That was me. I don't know. What do you think? Or is that a bit cautious?
No, normally you can get, most towns would have a cash machine. You just simply take out cash like at home, Now
I went at a great time because apparently, because I couldn't understand, it was all contactless. And I was thinking, gosh, they're getting charged for this because a lot of places here have stopped using contactless because of their charge. But at this time, they were having 1 year interest free. So that might be different if you're travelling next year, just. So it was all a lot of contactless.
I'm just going to finish here shortly, and I'm going to finish at past, but just planning a Camino day, just as little tips for how you do it. Like, work out your destination, obviously. Remember the stage. Where am I going to finish today? So you need the guidebook for that. Plan your stops for food and hydration. Where are you going to eat, How are you going to plan the day? Like I remember I said I like to buy my lunch in advance, so I get up in the morning and I can walk most of the day without coming across a town or whatever. So you can get by most of the day. But you have to have somewhere at night to stay and somewhere to eat at night, a restaurant obviously, the pilgrim menu thing. But check the altitude is the key thing. That's the killer, What's it like? Keep on track. The yellow arrows, the guidebook, the app. We're going to go into the apps just in a second here. But be flexible. It's one of the key things. Read the weather, your body, how you doing. Give yourself a day off if you need it. Get help. Sort out that shoe problem that's bothering you. Be flexible, Don't drive yourself, Things often only get worse. So to have the flexibility to be able to change your plans or take a day off, like Susanne is saying. And then
I was going to say, just checking the altitude in the hills. Just be careful because people do a lot of drama about it's really, really tough tomorrow. It's really, really tough. And really and truly, it's all doable. And checking again, back to if you haven't booked your accommodation, if you're walking it, if it's too much, you stop. If it's but just be careful with the people getting into the buzz of high altitudes or big steep walks and just for me it was be careful.
These are apps that you can use. I just recommend one of each. These are general apps, so accommodation, food, routes, etc. Like Buen Camino is one of the main ones, or all these ones are pretty common, pretty well used, But to have one of those. But the other one, see the GPS one? GPS, I reckon this is crucial as a backup, especially some of the less trodden routes. You need to know where you are in relation to the route, right? It's no good knowing just where you are. You need to know where the route is, how to get back en route. So I would use this as a backup. This will burn your battery. If you keep this on all the time, it'll just burn your battery in a couple of hours. So keep it as a backup. Just have it there just in case, but some way of getting back on track. And these are the ones I use that WikiLoc one, which is just one I'm familiar with, but very clunky and it takes a bit of learning how to use it, but just to have something,
I don't know if it's a girl's brain or a man's brain, but the men seem to be, when I was walking beside men, their phones were talking to them. I didn't use the GPS, but there was people beside me I could ask. And I used the one of them apps, the Wise Pilgrim I used the people standing to the right and the left of me that maybe had the GPS and the yellow arrows and the book.
Yep.
So that was too complex. GPS was too, I couldn't.
Exactly.
I can't do it here and I couldn't do it there.
Just a backup thing. And then this is just simply something that I've worked as a volunteer in last year. Camino Companions is an office just in the pilgrim office on the first floor. They have like a debriefing service where there's people there to welcome you. And normally they have a whole lot of pilgrims sit around and everybody says what their Camino was like. Everybody gets to talk. It is a bit like, it's a kind of a faith sharing, talking about my experience. Can be really helpful. You need to talk. Remember, you need to process what's happened. You need to tell someone what has happened. So I recommend this. This is a brilliant thing. There's also Mass in English every day. Normally it's about 10 o'clock in the morning because the Mass in the cathedral is in Spanish. But the cathedral Mass is really important to be at that as well, to do one of those. But this one here is a bit more intimate, small group, and it's people at the Mass say where they've walked from and how far they've come and all. That's really lovely, lovely experience.
It's lovely after a full walk to get an English Mass, for it's very, very rare to get an English Mass. So it's beautiful to hear an English Mass.
Yeah.
Really, really nice.
And then I think we're coming to the end. These are just a list of websites that might be useful. Again, if you want to take a picture of that, just a gear list. This online forum, it's got all the information. I mean, there's hundreds of Camino websites, but just a forum where people ask questions and all your questions are answered about all sorts of things about gear and food and routes and people walking alone, etc. On my book, good advice, routes, travel tips, useful Spanish, you know.
And the wee Facebook one as well, Brendan. There's a page on Facebook too.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot to put that on.
It's great actually, because all you have to go into that wee Facebook one and search shoes, socks, whatever it is, it's in your, and the next thing, every comment that, you know, questions been asked and answers, it's all there. So it's very good. Beforehand, it's great for me now because people share their photographs and it just brings the whole thing back up again. So I'm loving it as much today as what I did beforehand. So.
Yeah. Any questions?
Can I ask about best time of year to go? You mentioned about mosquitoes.
Oh wow.
So, can you avoid the mosquitoes? You know, is there a here people say don't go in the height of summer, which makes sense, but you know, everything's warming up, and she's feeling last year was like, you know, really hot. It was very summer months, so did you try to go in spring or autumn then?
That's right, spring or autumn normally is better, you know. I always say to people May or September, off peak, you know. But sometimes you don't have a choice, right? This is the thing. So remember that thing about getting up early? That's a key technique in order to avoid. And plus we use a head torch. Like, remember about the taxi driver? We used to get up at 4:30 and get it was 30 degrees at 11 o'clock. It was 40 degrees at 2 o'clock, right? It was ferocious. You couldn't walk. It was dangerous to walk in the heat, so we had to walk early mornings. But it works, you know, it's cool in the morning, so there are things you can do, but if you can avoid the heat, it's better. It's not pleasant. Walking in a lot of heat is not nice, you know.
See that bag? That bag, do you have a sleeping bag in that?
This is the bag that I use for the last 2 years, you know.
Sleeping bag?
Oh, I have a sleeping bag on mine, for sure. In the hot weather, I still use my sleeping bag, so. Well,
the sleeping bag takes up quite a bit of room, but it's not that heavy, you know. Remember?
get a wee light one. You can get a wee light one, so you can. You pay a wee bit more sometimes for things, but you have to. For me, it was looking at how important is this to me. So not everybody carried a sleeping bag. Some just use the wee liners. So they did.
But they have blankets? They have blankets, but you like your sleeping bag and bring it.
And the blankets, yes.
And the blankets.
I've needed, yes. I like to be warm.
Well, I'm going in April, so there'll be a sleeping bag.
Yeah. So there's blankets there. There's sheets, and there's. You know the wee theatre hats that the surgeons wear. So you can, for whenever you went to an albergue, you paid your money. They would have given you a sheets and a pillowcase cover mostly, and there's pillows or pillow and mostly and a blanket as well there if you need, and there's a protection to put over your mattress also, and your pillowcase. Look at it as just the wee material of the theatre hats.
Yeah. So another question here.
Can I just ask about preparation? So you said, I think Susanne, you said you never manage 20 kilometers a day.
No.
Because I'm running in 2 months' time.
Yes.
And I have managed 10 kilometers.
Oh, that's
in
great.
2.5 hours, or 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
That's great.
Do I need to push myself for 20 kilometers practice walks for 2 consecutive days? Because that's what I was told. And I can't.
Well, I don't. I would just say, for me, doing the best you can, and that's that. That's all I was able to do, and I was out on not every Sunday, but a few Sundays, up Cave Hill. So I wasn't out every day, and once a week, and if once a week and at the end maybe not. And look, I'm not saying, and I don't know how many kilometres I was doing, to be honest, but it wasn't 20, and it was maybe just about 10, to be honest. It probably was just about 10. So
Is the training
for the
walk?
training,
Yeah.
for training, but I was doing the best I could, but I wouldn't.
And Susanne, how long did it take you to do that? I mean, I'm not.
42 days.
Yeah.
42 or 43 days.
Yeah.
Longer
Yeah,
than
I
most.
would always,
longer
I would
than
always
most.
do the. I would always. You always walk less than what you actually do when you get there. The thing is to try to do that. Is the intermediate training you need to get in order to be there. So those 10, 12 kilometre walks are the ones you want to get to.
Yeah.
I always think if you can do 15, you can do 20 when you get there, you know. So to try to work it up. But a lot of it's a judgment call about
you're doing
how much
good.
you're going to walk when you get there. Are you going to aim to do 20 every day? So then you need to train for the 20, you know. But walking one day, right, is easy, but walking consecutive days is the tough thing. So you need some like extended treks, you know, where you're doing back to test this. But I would often do that thing, you know, walking every weekend, first of all, for a couple of weeks, and then the week or 10 days beforehand, then to really start packing it up and walk a couple of consecutive days and try to get up to 10 or 15 in order to make it to the 20, you know. And you can do it, you know, you can do it. But just to have your legs ready as you can, you know, I think.
Do you think it's silly to even think about a week if you've got dodgy knees? And if it's not completely out of order, is there a better route for Portuguese?
For that, yeah, I mean, remember that French route I said, the Sarria one? It's actually quite flat, and it's easy, and you can get your bag carried, remember, if you have dodgy knees, whatever. So you just work around it, you know, be realistic and use whatever help you get. I always say to people, just get yourself on that road, whatever way you can, you know, and don't be a purist about it, you know. You don't have to get everything exactly right, and take shortcuts if you have to, you know. I'm big into taking shortcuts as well. Some of the best decisions I've made, except for that one where I fell. Don't do that particular one, but sometimes you need to take a taxi, remember? Sometimes you need to, you know, get your bag carried, but just get yourself in a way that you can do it, you know, safely and enjoy it. And the enjoyment thing is the key thing, without wrecking yourself, without pushing yourself too hard. And if you have an injury, and I think it's always worth going to the doctor or a physio beforehand and get an assessment, you know, what you need to do. The other thing is that exercises, you know, stretching exercises goes a huge amount in terms of walking. So I would always do that every time I stop. I learned that on that, remember the novitiate walk we did in Spain? You don't actually need to rest, you need to stretch. You need to stretch the muscles, and that's what gives you long walks, you know, and the muscles are okay and your legs feel okay. So at the end of the day, you do a real thorough stretch of all the muscles before you do anything else. And maybe a bit of massage or whatever as well helps a lot, you know, to try to keep yourself mobile and on the road. You know?
Yeah, the stretching is key. It is really, really key, but it's very hard to do. As in, it's not physically hard, it's mentally hard to get around to doing it. But I was so tight after my first week. I was so firm. I wasn't doing stretches. I was looking at others and thinking, would it be good to do that? And I should do that, but I didn't do it. But I ended out then, I took a half day. So they talk about a rest day, and it's very hard to take a rest day. I don't know if it's the mind or if it's whatever it is. But the other is you have to be out of that albergue by 8 o'clock anyway. So do you pace about? And for me, it was, I went for a half day's walk and then arrived at the destination. And on the first week, got myself a massage, and it honestly just was transformative. A full body massage, because the shoulders were tight, the back was tight, the calves were tight, everything was just tight and sore. Do you know that if I hadn't stopped at that stage and I hadn't done something at that stage, that would nearly, you know, it would. I'm not sure where it went, but Brenton says the stretches, like, and they're not that. They're actually very easy to do, but it's just the discipline of doing them.
Yeah.
You know, when it's not in your routine, but definitely.
Any other questions? We're just going to finish in a minute or so here.
So that when are you doing your one in June?
It's the first, starts on the 3rd or 4th of June, you know. But it's all booked up now. It's just American group, you know.
And are you doing any more?
We're not doing any organised ones, you know. But if people were interested, we would think about it here in the centre, you know. People were interested in that sort of thing. I mean, most people just go on their own, obviously, and a lot of people you can go on your own. You meet people along the way, you know. But some people like to be part of a group and have things organised for them and stuff, you know. You probably need a little bit of Spanish, remember, in order to be able to negotiate stuff and get a room, you know, get food, etc.
Google Translate's amazing, absolutely amazing. And because that was one of my, God, Brenton, I'm doing everything contrary to you. No, honest to goodness, but I know Brenton did say, and I had it on my list of to-dos, you know, but it kept going to the bottom. Learn a bit of Spanish, even just for coffee and toilet and all the rest of it. But Google Translate's great at number 1, and number 2, in front of a menu, you just put your phone over the top of it and it tells you it in English. It's just, so Google Translate, if you have got internet. See, if you don't have internet, you're actually then at that stage. You know, you're in a different level of trust and faith. You're not eating. But yeah, so Google Translate. But it's nice. It's the love, and you know what's really inspirational is that, do you see all the wee young people that are like just out of university? They're wanting to practice their Spanish and stuff, and it's so well received. And that's inspirational to see how they're received and how they want to use their Spanish. I'd be going, oh, you know, don't bother. But it's really lovely to witness people using it and being received. So it's a lovely, if you can, certainly, you know, if time allows it. Yeah.
Okay.
You're right.
Any points regarding the walking sticks? Is there good sticks and bad sticks? Or
Regards which?
Yeah.
My hearing is not great.
Oh, these poles.
The boots?
Yes.
Sticks? Yeah. Do you want to say something?
I have nothing to say. I went into, John and I ended up Sleeve Donard one day doing a walk, and it suggested bringing poles. And I went into the shop and got poles. And so somebody would say that the cork handles and stuff, and I looked at all the reviews, but the bottom line was these I got in Sports Direct, and when I went to get the proper ones as per the book, I felt these were mine. These were mine, and so these are the ones that went with me. And because I was taking them as well, I sent my bags through cargo. Is that the word? Not cargo. I shipped them. I checked them in. Them in because I didn't want that doubt, or that I didn't need that extra stress of will they take them from me or will they not. And
they will take them from you if you don't check them.
You'll read reviews and they'll say that they won't, but I wasn't taking that chance. So they were, all of it was checked in, and so these went with me, and these have come home with me, and I think they're great, especially for knees. They're great actually. And this, you can. Well, no, not on in your hand luggage. No,
you can't bring them on the plane, but you can put them in your baggage. So the collapsible ones are the best. But I recommend the poles.
100%.
Apparently they take about 28% of the weight off your knees, right? And this is crucial because you know you want to protect your legs as best you can.
And there's a great rhythm and dance to them, as true as God. See, when you're walking and they're going and your feet are going, the birds are singing. Oh Jesus! If it's in your heart, all I'd say is just don't wait. If you're, don't wait, just go. If there's a calling for it, just whatever. Aye.
Pick them up, they were donated, they were left in hostels, or there's Aldi, little Decathlon.
Oh, you'll get everything you need, yeah. And some people don't use them.
We're just going to finish there, but anybody who would like to stay on and chat, you're most welcome. If you have to go, that's fine. Have a coffee if you want. The donation box is outside. If you want to leave us something, that'd be great. There's the books are on sale there as well. You could just help yourself. There's a cash box out there. But thank you all very much. I hope you get on the Camino and have a good walk. Just get there. Thank you. Thanks especially Susanne for helping me out. Just a fantastic.
Thank you for asking me. You're very kind.
Thank you.